I want you to just try and picture a number for a second. The number is 64.
Okay.
So imagine 64 highly trained, aggressive adversaries, all in a room, all looking right at you.
And you're alone.
You're completely alone. You have one weapon, and you've got exactly 12 seconds of ammunition for it.
That's the kind of math that just screams, give up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a fight. It's an execution.
Exactly. But this isn't some hypothetical. This is December 13th, 1943. We're in the skies over Assam, India. The humidity is so thick you could, chew on it.
Right.
And a 23-year-old lieutenant, Philip Adair, is sitting in the cockpit of a P-40 Warhawk, and he's staring at that exact ratio, 1:64.
And the source material we're digging into today, the combat reports, the post-mission analysis from the 89th Fighter Squadron, it paints a picture of a mission that, by all known laws of, probability of physics,
It just shouldn't happen.
it should have ended in a smoking crater in 30 seconds.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're not just talking about a dogfight. We are talking about what happens when the manual says you're dead, the mechanics say the plane won't fly, and you have to literally turn your world upside down just to survive.
It's a masterclass in improvisation under just the most extreme pressure. Philip Adair didn't just survive. He effectively rewrote the book on what a so-called obsolete aircraft could do when the pilot just refuses to quit.
Okay, so let's set the scene a bit before we get into the chaos. Assam, India, 1943. Most people, when they think of the war, they think Europe or the Pacific island hopping. What was so vital about India? Why was Adair even up there?
So Assam was basically the end of the line, specifically Denjon Airfield, where Adair was based. This wasn't some random outpost.
No.
It was the critical hub for the Hump airlift. You got to remember, at this point, the Japanese controlled all the land routes into China. The Burma Road was cut.
So this was the only way in.
The only way to get China bullets, fuel, medicine was to fly it over the Himalayas.
The Hump. I've read about that. That was supposed to be the most dangerous air in the world, even without anyone shooting at you, right?
Absolutely. The weather alone killed more pilots than the enemy did in some months. And Denjon was the beating heart of that whole operation.
And on this particular day?
On this day, the base was packed. You had 14 C-47 transport planes loaded with supplies. You had huge fuel dumps. And, maybe the most critical part, a field hospital right next to the runway. 63 wounded soldiers inside.
Wow. So if that base gets hit, you're not just losing some gas. This is a massive strategic loss.
It breaks the supply chain to China. It would have been catastrophic for the whole theater. And the Japanese knew it.
So they sent everything.
They sent the hammer. The intel reports identified the force as 24 Mitsubishi Kai-21 heavy bombers. The Allies called them Sallies. And they were escorted by 40 Nakajima K-43 fighters, the Oscars.
Okay, hang on. 40 fighters and 24 bombers. That is a huge armada. And on our side, defending the base, just Philip Adair. Where's everybody else?
It's just terrible timing. The radar coverage in that part of India was stodgy at best, mostly hills and jungle. So the alarm went out late. Most of the squadron was grounded or maybe on patrol somewhere else.
Well, he was the only one on alert.
He was the alert pilot. He scrambled, but by the time he broke through the clouds, he was the only Allied speck in the sky.
I want to talk about this matchup for a second because, in movies, a plane is a plane. But Adair is in a P-40 Warhawk. The enemy is in Oscars. That is not an even fight at all, is it?
No, it's arguably the worst possible matchup for an American pilot in '43. The P-40 was a 1930s design. It was a rugged plane, sure. Pilots called it a flying tank.
A flying tank? That sounds good until you have to turn.
Exactly. It was fast in a dive. You could get it up to maybe 378 miles per hour. But it turned like a truck.
Yeah.
The Japanese Oscar, though, was the total opposite. Incredibly lightweight, almost fragile, but it had these things called butterfly combat flaps.
And those let it turn.
It could fly circles around a P-40, literally. If you got into a turning fight with an Oscar, you died. Simple as that.
So what's the doctrine? What does the manual tell Adair to do here?
The doctrine for a P-40 versus an Oscar is strict. Boom. And zoom. You dive, you shoot, and you use your weight and speed to run away. You never, ever turn.
And the doctrine for facing 64 enemy planes by yourself?
It's even simpler. You don't. You wait for backup.
But he knows backup is at another base, Jorhat, and that's 38 minutes away.
An eternity. So he does the math. If he waits, the hospital and the C-47s are gone. If he attacks, he probably dies. He chose to attack.
But he didn't just fly straight at them. That would be suicide. He had a plan.
He used the one advantage he had, which was altitude. He climbed to 4,000 feet above the bombers and put the sun right at his back.
So they can't see him coming.
Right. And he knew he couldn't shoot down 64 planes, didn't have the ammo. His goal was just disruption.
So he wants to smook them, break up their formation.
Exactly. Japanese bombers flew in a tight V for defensive fire and bombing accuracy. If you could scatter them, they couldn't hit the target.
So he pushes the stick forward. He's diving at almost 400 miles an hour.
Just screaming down on them. And he holds his fire, which takes incredible nerve. He waits till he's 800 yards, point-blank range, basically, and just opens up with all 6.50 calibers on the lid bomber.
The kinetic energy of that alone must have.
It just tore the bomber apart, set the engine on fire instantly, and it worked. The formation panicked, bombers scattered everywhere.
So mission accomplished?
For about 5 seconds, because now he has 40 very angry Oscar pilots all diving on him at once.
And this is where the nightmare starts.
It's a total nightmare. He pulls out of the dive, pulling 7 Gs, so his vision is tunneling, his body feels like it weighs a ton, and he realizes in that second he can't run.
But why not? I thought the P-40 was faster in a dive.
It is, but if he extends, if he runs away to reset the fight, the bombers will just get back into formation and hit the hospital. To save the base, he has to stay in the furball. He has to mix it up with 40 planes that can outturn him just to keep them busy.
He's making himself the bait.
He is the bait. And now we have to talk about the plane itself. The P-40 used an Allison engine. It was liquid-cooled.
I've heard about those. A bit. Temperamental.
That's a polite way of putting it. They're delicate. A single bullet hits the coolant system, the engine seizes in minutes. But even without damage, they have limits. The manual says you can run war emergency power, redlining the engine.
For how long?
Maybe 5 minutes, tops.
And Adair.
He ran it at full power for 11 minutes straight. The coolant temp gauge pegged past 240 degrees. He was melting the engine from the inside out.
And while the engine is cooking itself, he's doing head-on passes.
It was his only move. He couldn't turn with them, so he'd turn towards them. A terrifying game of chicken.
Which sounds completely insane, but I guess the P-40 has the armor for that.
That was the gamble. The P-40 has heavy armor plate, thick glass. The Oscar is paper thin. In a head-on shootout, the P-40 usually wins. He actually blew one Oscar out of the sky that way. But the math, 40-1, it eventually catches up.
He starts taking hits.
A lot of hits. Post-flight counted 16 heavy caliber hits in the fuselage, 7 in the wings. But 3 of those hits basically killed the airplane. First, a round severs the right aileron control rod.
Okay, so that's roll control.
Gone. Then, the elevator cables are shredded.
That's pitch. Nose up, nose down.
Also gone.
Yeah.
And finally, a round punches right through the coolant reservoir.
Oh, man. So let's just pause on that. Losing your aileron in an elevator. The stick in your hand is basically just a loose lever at that point, right? It's connected to nothing.
It's completely disconnected. And to make it worse, hot glycol coolant is spraying all over his windshield. He can't see. The cockpit is filling with this toxic white smoke.
And the engine.
Oil pressure drops to 0.
So he's blind, he's choking, the engine is dead, and he has no control. The plane starts to dive.
It rolls hard to the right. The damaged aileron is just acting like an air brake, forcing it down. The nose pitches toward the jungle. He's pulling back on the stick with both hands, screaming, but nothing's happening.
He's dead. I mean, objectively at that point, he is dead.
He should be. He's falling at 250 miles an hour. But in that moment of absolute terror, Adair remembers this weird quirk of aerodynamics. It's really just a theory he'd heard.
A theory? How does a theory save you when your controls are cut?
Well, forces are relative. The damage is pushing the wing down. It's pushing the nose down. Adair realizes that if he flips the entire plane upside down...
The down becomes up.
Exactly. The force that was pushing the wing down toward the ground is now pushing it up toward the sky. The force pushing the nose down is now lifting the nose away from the trees.
That is so counterintuitive. You're crashing, so you intentionally flip the plane over.
It's pure physics, but it takes an incredible presence of mind to even try it. He muscles it over at about 1,800 feet. And it works. The dive stops, the plane levels out, and actually starts to climb.
So he's flying a broken, burning plane upside down. That's movie stuff. Wait, engines don't like flying upside down, do they?
No, they hate it. Especially back then. The fuel intake needs gravity. After about 40 seconds of inverted flight, the engine just sputtered and died. Fuel starvation.
So he's a glider now. He has to flip back over.
He has to. He flips right side up to get gas flowing again, but the second he does, The damage takes over and the plane dives for the ground.
Oh my God, so he has to cycle it.
It became this horrifying loop of survival. Fly upside down to climb and stay alive. Engine dies. Flip upright to restart it, but plummet toward the jungle. Then flip upside down again, just to catch the air. Over and over.
What about the Japanese pilots, the ones chasing him?
This is the wildest part of the story.
Yo!
They stopped shooting. They watched this P-40 trailing smoke, flipping end over end like this.
And they just figured he was crashing.
They thought he was either dead at the controls or the plane was completely out of control, so why waste the ammo? They actually broke off the attack and headed home.
So he survived the fight, but now he's got to get this wreck home. How far away is the base?
He flew that insane inverted roller coaster pattern for 11 minutes. And remember, his oil pressure gauge was on 0 that entire time.
The engine shouldn't even be running.
It was running on pure friction and momentum. The insides were basically welding themselves together. By the time he spots the runway at Nguli, the engine is destroying itself. But he has a new problem. Landing.
The gear. He needs the landing gear.
Right, but the hydraulic pump runs off the engine, and the engine has basically no power. The wheels won't drop.
Can't he just belly land it? Slide it in?
Not with the plane on fire and leaking fuel everywhere. The friction would ignite it instantly. He has to get the wheels down. Now, the P-40 did have a manual backup, a hand pump in the cockpit.
Okay, so he just pumps the gear down.
It sounds easy, but it takes 28 full strokes to lock the gear. And the pump is really stiff. It takes 2 hands.
But if he takes his hands off the stick...
The plane flips and crashes. He needs 2 hands to fly the plane and 2 hands to pump the gear. It's a literal catch-22.
So what does he do? Does he try to use his knees or something?
Something much better. He basically invents an autopilot on the fly. He unbuckles his seatbelt. He takes the heavy canvas lap belt, wraps it tight around the control stick, and ties the other end to the structural frame of his seat.
He tied the stick in place with his seatbelt?
He rigged it just tight enough to hold the plane steady. He lets go, praying the knot holds, grabs the pump with both hands, and just starts pumping for his life. 1, 2, choking on smoke. All the way to 28. He hears a clunk. The gear locks.
That's unbelievable. So the gear is down, he unties the stick, he's lined up.
But he's not out of the woods. That smoke you mentioned, he's been breathing burning glycol and exhaust for almost 15 minutes. He has severe carbon monoxide poisoning.
What does that actually feel like in the moment?
He described it as a gray out. His vision is closing in, like a tunnel. He can barely feel his hands. His brain is just slow. He's on the verge of passing out. And then, 2 miles from the runway, the engine finally seizes for good.
Complete silence.
The prop just stops. Now, a P-40, with its gear down, has the aerodynamics of a brick. It doesn't glide, it just falls. He's going to crash short of the runway.
No! After all that, he fought 64 planes, flew upside down, rigged his seatbelt, and he's going to crash 2 miles short.
He remembers one last thing. A rumor, really. Something he'd heard in flight school. The theory was that an inverted gliding upside down, creates less drag on that specific airframe.
You have got to be kidding me. He flips it upside down again.
One last time. He rolls the dead, silent plane onto its back. He's gliding toward the runway with the wheels sticking up in the air, his head hanging down. The ground crew at the base actually ran for the anti-aircraft guns.
They thought he was an enemy plane.
They thought it was a Japanese pilot doing a victory stunt. They almost shot him down on final approach. Adair holds that glide until he's at treetop height, maybe 200 feet. Then, with the last ounce of strength he has, he rolls it upright.
Talk about cutting it fine.
The wheels hit the dirt almost instantly. He slammed down so hard it was 7 Gs of force. The landing gear just collapsed. The whole plane spun 180 degrees and skidded to a stop in a cloud of dust.
And he got out.
He just sat there for like 12 seconds, just breathing. Then he unbuckled and crawled out onto the wing.
And the plane? Lulu Bell?
Total loss. When the mechanics opened the engine, the connecting rods were literally welded to the crankshaft. It was just a solid block of metal. Lulu Bell never flew again.
But the mission, the bombers.
And that's the most important part. Intel confirmed it later. All 24 bombers turned back. Not a single bomb was dropped on Denjon. The transports were safe. The 63 wounded soldiers were safe.
One guy. In one obsolete plane, he stopped an entire raid.
And the flight surgeons had the final incredible word. They tested his blood. The carbon monoxide levels were lethal. Medically speaking, Philip Adair should have been unconscious for the last 10 minutes of that flight.
He landed that plane while he was technically supposed to be in a coma.
Or just running on pure will. He was awarded the Silver Star for it, went on to fly 95 more missions, became an ace. But I think this story it really challenges how we think about technology in warfare.
Yeah, we love to compare the specs, turn rates, top speeds.
Right. And on paper, the P-40 loses to the Oscar 100 times out of 100. It's obsolete. But combat isn't a simulation. There's that human variable. Adair just refused to accept the data that told him he was dead.
I just keep coming back to that moment he flipped the plane over. It's such a powerful metaphor, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, all the forces were pushing him down. The harder he fought against them the normal way, the faster he fell.
He had to embrace the chaos. He had to look at it and say, okay, if the world is pushing me down, I'll turn the world over so it starts pushing me up.
Sometimes the only way out of an impossible situation is to do the one thing that looks absolutely insane to everyone else watching.
That is a hell of a takeaway. Whether you're at 4,000 feet or just dealing with a problem that seems impossible, maybe check your six. And don't be afraid to fly inverted.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's it for this deep dive into the impossible flight of Lulu Bell. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next one.